Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I'd like to talk about the Exaltation Dignity as well as Exaltation Degrees, the Book of the Treasure of Alexander, and our new Sun Exaltation Degree Talismans. So it seems like a lot of stuff I've got mixed in there, but really it all pulls together with the whole discussion of exaltation as a dignity and just some more details of that. So what's kind of cool about this is we've got these talismans, but it also allows us to get kind of a more of an investigation into the whole idea of what is exaltation. So, if you're not at all familiar with traditional astrology, if you're coming from a modern perspective, the whole essential dignity thing can be a little mysterious. We're familiar with the planets ruling signs, but in traditional astrology, the planets rule the sign, which is given a score of +5. And then the next dignity is exaltation. And so the planets are considered to be exalted when they're in a particular sign. So for example, the Sun is exalted in Aries, Venus is exalted in Pisces, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have triplicities, terms, faces, etc. So essentially what these are is as the planets move through the zodiac, depending on what degree they're in, what sign they're in, they have different levels of strength. And also, the sign opposite of the sign is the sign of detriment. So if you're +5 in your sign, then you're -5 in your detriment. So for example, the sun is +5 in Leo and then -5 in Aquarius. So, and this gives us a sense of the strength of the planet. So it goes everywhere from being 0, which peregrine. There's a little bit of just lack of consensus about that, but that's how I treat peregrine as being 0. And then all the way from -5 to +5. So this gives us, the essential dignity system gives us a really amazing way of gauging the strength, the basic strength of a planet and what it signifies in a chart, depending on what kind of chart is natal, horary, electional chart. And that really helps with prediction. Whereas modern astrology, which is much more psychologically oriented, don't really have that dignity sense. They don't have that strength and weakness. Pretty much everything is positive. There's a few negative things, but pretty much everything is positive. So that's one of the main differences between, one isn't better than the other, but having that essential dignity system is one of the things that's really useful about traditional astrology in terms of prediction, because you're able to map very carefully, very precisely the strength and relative weakness of the significators through the planetary's essential dignity. So let's talk a little bit about exaltation. Again, it's one of those things that I think that people are more familiar with the signs. The exaltations are a little more mysterious, and in fact, that's something that continues through our sources. But for example, the medieval astrologer Guido Bonatti says that a planet in his exaltation is like a man who's in his own kingdom, in his own glory like a kingdom, a dukedom, or a podesta. It's from his Libra Astronomia. And then Al-Biruni, who's also a medieval Arabic astrologer, says exaltations are places of exaltation where the planet's raised up, like the thrones of a king or other positions. So there's this continuing sort of association between exaltation and kingship and rulership and authority and being raised up. And in fact, Mashallah, who's again another Arabic medieval astrologer, says that the exaltations are a greater authority in a matter of kingship. So if something's done by a king, you'd be looking to the Lord of the exaltation. And in fact, I've even seen sources that say the exaltation is stronger in this circumstance when you're looking at this sort of power. So that's very interesting. So there's already this sort of association of, obviously a very strong dignity. When we make talismans, we're quite happy to have a planet be exalted. That's an excellent place to have a planet situated. It's considered to be +4, and that does very well for a planetary talisman. That's a position of strength in terms of essential dignity. So by the time we get to the Middle Ages, later Middle Ages, and into the Renaissance, it's pretty much the consensus in traditional astrology that a planet is exalted and gets that +4 dignity throughout the sign that's exalted in. But the earlier sources talk about the exaltation degrees. So for example, the sun is exalted in the 19th degree of Aries, the moon in the 3rd degree of Taurus, Mercury in the 15th degree of Virgo, Venus in the 27th degree of Pisces, Mars in the 28th degree of Capricorn, Jupiter in the 15th degree of Cancer, and then Saturn in the 21st degree of Libra. Now, one of the interesting things about the Book of the Treasure of Alexander, which we're going to talk a little bit more later, is that it adds the 10th degree of Aquarius as an exaltation degree, which is very interesting. This is typical of traditional sources that have stuff that kind of comes out of nowhere, so maybe a little bit mysterious or inexplicable. So I just thought that was interesting, and it sort of makes sense. I mean, obviously Aquarius is the Saturn is very well dignified there. It's Triplicity rulership there. And as well, Saturn is said to joyeth in Aquarius. So that's another essential dignity is the joy. So something to watch out for though, 19th degree of Aries, that's not 19 Aries, okay? It's like the difference between 1700 and the 18th century. So 19th degree of Aries is going to be from 18 degrees, in 0 minutes to 18 degrees and 59 minutes, okay? So that's something to watch out for. And it trips us up. The traditional sources like to talk about, like I said, 19th, and our tendency in modern is to be 19 degrees. So again, watch out for that. I had previously mentioned the Book of the Treasure of Alexander. This is a Arabic book of astrological magic and alchemy, and it has a really interesting section because it has talismans for each of the planets in their exaltation degree. So I thought, you know what, this would be really interesting to do. In 2021, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to make some sun exaltation degree talismans. Okay, so the Book of the Treasure of Alexander says, when the sun is in the 19th degree of Aries, which is the degree of his exaltation, irregardless of whether the sun is in the ascendant, inscribe the image of a seated and crowned man with a long spear in his hand. And it says, whoever carries this will be exalted and honored by kings, and all who behold him will be in awe, and no one will wish him harm. So that just sounded really cool, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and make these talismans. So this year we went ahead and made them. We've got them both in bronze, and you can sort of see the image there. Again, go to our website, renaissanceastrology.com. If you go to talismans at the top and then go to currently available talismans and then the sun, you can take a look at these. So we have them in bronze, and then we also have a very few here. These are amazing in yellow agate, and they have the image of the crowned man with a spear and then a little sign of Aries there. These are the sun degrees. So these were made with the sun actually on the midheaven, so directly overhead, so we were able to get that additional dignity. Now, one of the things that you can see in the Book, The Treasure of Alexander, it says don't worry about whether it's in the ascendant, because normally, if you're going to make a planetary talisman, some of the standard recipe for that from Picatrix, which also seems to be, they're taking cognizance of the standard recipe here in the Book of Treasure of Alexander, is that you want to have the planet either rising or culminating, so right on the ascendant or conjunct the midheaven. But because it may be difficult to get the planet in the right degree, then they said, no, you just need to get it in the exaltation degree. But our talismans, we have managed to get them with the sun culminating, which is nice. And of course, the additional thing you've got here is that the sun is in Aries, so it's exalted, so that's +4. By day, it's triplicity, and ours are also, I believe they have another in face, which is another, so they're +8, which is really very, very powerful. Obviously the main thing is getting for this is the exaltation degree. What I like about these talismans is that the sun is all by itself great for success and fame. If you think about a celebrity, they're called stars. Really, astrologically, they ought to be called suns. I mean, the sun is the closest to a sort of celebrity in terms of that fame, that charisma, that power. So the sun's naturally that way. You make him dignified, it's even better. And then you put him in exaltation, it's even more powerful. And what I really think about these exaltation degree talismans is what they're doing is the exaltation is, I do think, is extends throughout the sign, but you hit the exaltation degree and you really punch it up. It's sort of like Kazemi. You're getting the strongest of the strong and the most focused intensity of that exaltation. So I was really kind of excited to have these talismans. Another thing I like about these is this, what the Book of the Treasure of Alexander says about, people will be so in awe of you that no one will want to harm you. basically you're just such an amazing person. You get such a great vibe, charismatic vibe that no one will hurt you. I like this. To me, this is the best kind of protection, because as opposed to having all these people hating you and trying to put up a shield or something, or having secret enemies, this is going further. This is saying, hey, people don't even want to be your enemy. They're so amazed by you, or they're so like you so much that they're not even going to be your enemy. So I think that's an even more effective, a deeper root protection talisman. So I like that as well. So this video is being made right at the end of July 2021. If you're interested in these talismans, you can definitely take a look at our website. But if it's sometime after that, and you look at this video, because the video is going to be up for a long time, these will probably be sold out. We can only make a very limited quantity of them. We can only make a few at a time. We made them, and then these talismans are not going to stay in stock long, because all of Renaissance Astrology talismans are made in limited quantities, and they all eventually sell out. So check it out. See what we've got. You can at least see the other sun talismans that are not there, and if they're still there, definitely take a look at those and check them out, because these are really amazing talismans. So I think the final issue that I wanted to talk about with exaltations was the idea of what the origin of them are. Now, really, as a practical matter, as a traditional astrologer, in our day-to-day use of them, we don't really need to worry about them, what the origin was. I mean, it's +4, it's a strong dignity, we know it's dignified, and we know it works. So the traditional sources in terms of describing what the exaltation means, or what the function of it is, it's pretty clear. But the origin is, compared to the signs, rather mysterious. Abu Mashar, who's another Arabic astrologer, according to Bonatti, medieval Italian astrologer, says that the exaltations were the location of the planets at the origin of the world. And if you look at my website under Essential Dignities, there's a whole page with a lot of explanation from the 17th century astrologer William Ramsay that talks about the basic traditional explanation of the exaltation origin, which goes back to Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos. And essentially it's seasonal. So it's a little complex, so I won't go through all the details of it. But if you just start out by saying, for example, the sun exalted in Aries. Aries is associated with the spring, because when the sun goes into Aries, that's the spring equinox. And that as the sun begins to move northward, so if you're in the northern hemisphere, you're going to watch if you watch the sun rise every day, it's going to move further and further and further north, starting from the equinox is when it's equal point, and then it's going to stop at the summer solstice and then start going southward. So the sun is associated then with Aries, and then they say, well, the moon would be, if she's conjunct to Aries, she'd then move into Taurus, so that's why she's exalted. It's like, okay. I mean, I suppose it makes sense. They said, though, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, and that's the summer solstice. So you can check out the details of it. I'm not sure. It almost has a sense to me of kind of after the fact. I mean, you can kind of put those together, but it's not something that would jump out at you that's obvious. Like, for example, if you look at traditionally at how the planetary rulerships work, that's a pretty harmonious system. This one, again, it's a little bit, it's interesting to see what the explanation is traditionally, but I'm not sure if I'm entirely convinced. Another thing that you can check out is Chris Brennan's Astrology Podcast. He did an Astrology Podcast with Ben Dykes. I believe it's number 255, and they discuss another discovery apparently that Chris and Ben have made in terms of the Hellenistic, arrangement and again the origin. Very interesting. It's again a little complicated. I'm not sure. I'm not saying I'm not convinced or unconvinced. I found it really fascinating to see what those guys had to say, and of course they're definitely worth listening to. But I really come away with all the explanations I've seen. I'm not really sure if I'm going to subscribe to 100%. And I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that in traditional astrology, it wasn't considered 100% necessary to have an easy and obvious explanation for everything. The tradition is useful. It works. We can see how that operates, and we can accept the tradition. I'm kind of actually drawn to Abu Mashar's explanation. That's the location of the planets at the beginning of the world. kind of like that. But I think really what it opens up is a lot of interesting questions about exaltation. So I was very happy to be able to make these exaltation talismans. I think the whole exaltation dignity is very interesting, still mysterious, and maybe that's part of the appeal of why I like it so much. So again, check out the Ramsey. Take a look at the Chris Brennan's podcast with Ben Dykes if you're interested. But definitely go and check out our currently available talismans, including our sun talismans, and check out these amazing sun exaltation degree talismans.